All right, let's talk about something that seems super simple on the surface, but can get really complex when you do it professionally: QR codes. Today, we're going to build a rock-solid, secure, and totally scalable blueprint for handling them using a serverless architecture. Let's dive in.
So you need to spin up a QR code for a bill, maybe a ticket. How hard can that be, right? I mean, you just generate an image, save it somewhere, and give the user a link. Done. Or is it? Well, when you're dealing with real-world applications, especially with sensitive data, it turns out the answer is way more complicated.
Because all of a sudden, you're hit with these professional-grade hurdles. You can't just dump financial data into a public folder. That's a huge no-no. And what happens when a customer clicks a link in an email from 6 months ago only to see a broken image? That's a terrible user experience. Then you've got formats. You need a sharp vector SVG for printing, but also a small PNG for a mobile app. How do you handle that smoothly? And maybe the biggest question of all, can your system survive a sudden flood of thousands of requests?
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to break down a really clean professional workflow. We'll start with the real challenge hiding in plain sight, then introduce an elegant two-function solution. We'll walk through each step one by one, and then we'll cover why this architecture is so powerful and wrap it all up with a blueprint you can use in your own projects.
You see, the real challenge isn't about just making a QR code image. It's about shifting your mindset. You're not just creating a picture. You're actually building a robust asset management system. You're creating a permanent thing that needs to be accessed securely, but only temporarily, over and over again.
So this is the heart of the problem, right here. How do you manage that life cycle? A permanent asset, like a bill, should exist forever. But the link someone uses to look at it, that should be temporary, secure, and disposable. Just throwing a public link out there is a recipe for security nightmares and a broken app. And the solution? Well, it lies in this beautifully simple idea. You separate the act of creating the assets from the act of retrieving them. We're going to do this with two totally separate serverless functions, each with one very clear job. You can think of it like this. We have an asset factory, and we have a URL vending machine.
Okay, now check this out, because this slide really shows the clean separation. On one side, you've got the asset factory. This thing takes in all the messy, sensitive data, the IBAN, the amount, all of it. It does the heavy lifting. It validates the data, renders the SVG, converts it to other formats, and then squirrels everything away in secure storage. Its only output? A simple database record with the permanent paths to those files. Then you've got the URL vending machine. So much simpler. It just takes an ID, looks up those paths, and spits out brand new, secure, time-limited URLs right on the spot.
So let's pop the hood on the first part of our system, the asset factory. This is the Generate QR Assets function. This is where all the creation happens, safely and securely behind the scenes. The whole process is super methodical and robust. First, it gets that raw billing data and cleans it up, validates everything. Is the IBAN format right? Are we missing any fields? Then, it renders the master asset, a perfect scalable vector SVG. From that original, it creates the other versions, like a PNG and a JPG. All three files get uploaded to a private, secure cloud storage bucket. And now for the most critical step of all, it saves the permanent, unchanging file paths, not URLs, but the paths, to a database record. And this is what that output looks like. This Firestore document is our permanent source of truth. It's got the unique ID, and most importantly, these static storage paths for each file. Notice what's missing? There are no expiring URLs here. These paths are like a permanent address. They will never, ever change or break.
All right, now for the second half of our story, the URL vending machine. This function, Get QR Asset URLs, is where the real elegance of this whole system just clicks. Its job is incredibly simple, but so powerful.
So when a user actually needs to see their QR code, the app calls this function with just one little piece of info, the document ID. The function uses that ID to look up our record in the database and grab those permanent file paths we stored earlier. Then, and only then, does it go to the cloud storage and say, hey, generate me some fresh, secure, time-limited URLs for these paths. Those brand new links are sent back to the client, and boom, the images appear. And how long are these links good for? A really short time. By setting an expiration of, say, 15 minutes, we make sure that access is temporary. After that, the link is totally useless. This is awesome for security. It prevents people from sharing or deep linking to sensitive assets. If the user needs to see it again, no problem. The app just calls the function again and gets a fresh batch of URLs. Simple as that.
So let's step back for a second. Why is this two-function approach so much better than the simple, naive way of doing things? Well, it all boils down to a few core principles that create a system that's truly professional and built to last.
Let's just put it side by side. The wrong way, the way that causes so many headaches, is storing a signed URL directly in your database. That link will expire. It's going to lead to dead links and frustrated users, and basically forces you to either make your storage public, which is a terrible idea for financial data, or build some crazy complex logic to constantly refresh dead links. Our way, the right way, stores the permanent path. The reference is always good. Because we generate URLs just in time, they're always fresh, and our data stays completely private. It's the difference between a brittle, insecure house of cards and a robust, secure fortress.
So let's just quickly run through the core benefits here, because they're huge. Number one, and this is the big one, your sensitive data is never, ever public. It lives safely in a private bucket. 2, your users will never hit a broken image from an expired URL, because every link is generated fresh, just for them. 3, your database is now a permanent, reliable, single source of truth. And finally, you end up with a clean, scalable, professional workflow that you won't be tearing your hair out trying to fix in 6 months. Okay, to really hammer this all home and make it stick, let's use a quick analogy that lines up perfectly with our architecture: making and storing a frozen meal. It all starts with the ingredients, right? This is your raw input data, the creditor info, the amount, the currency. These are the basic, fresh components you need to make the final product.
Next up, you need a kitchen. That's our Generate QR Asset serverless function. The kitchen is where you take those raw ingredients, you prep them, you cook them, and you turn them into the final finished meal, our perfectly rendered SVG. So once the meal is cooked and packaged up, in our case into SVG, PNG, and JPG formats, it needs to be stored. Our secure cloud storage bucket, that's the deep freezer. It keeps our finished assets perfectly preserved and totally safe for as long as we need them. And finally, how do you find anything in a giant freezer? You need a label. Our Firestore document is that label. It doesn't contain the meal itself, just the critical info, what's inside, and most importantly, where to find it in the freezer. When you're ready to eat, you just read the label, find the meal, and heat it up right on demand. So, if you take just one thing away from this whole explainer, please let it be this. Signed URLs are disposable. Think of them like a movie ticket. They're good for one-time, temporary access. Your permanent source of truth should always be the storage path. Store the path and generate the link only when you need it.
And that's the blueprint. As you can see, this serverless architecture is incredibly powerful, and it goes way beyond just QR codes. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What other assets in your own applications, things like user-uploaded documents, generated reports, private photos, could this exact same pattern help you manage and protect? Thanks for tuning in.